get started looking at other types of tools for doing state statutory research in addition to our annotated code. So of course our annotated code is our BFF, but there are other tools that can help us with specific types of state statutory research. And the first type of tool is something called a 50-state survey. Many of you as young attorneys or associates are going to be asked by a supervisor to tell me the law in all 50 states on fill in the blank. Actually, when I was practicing, I was asked to do this for underground storage tanks. And boy, do I wish I knew about the tool called 50-state surveys, which at the time, sadly, I did not. If I had, I could go here on Westlaw and type in the word 50 state, and you'll see there's actually different types of surveys. So we're going to look specifically at state statutory surveys. And we see here just a list of the various topics of surveys. So for purposes of our client, if for some reason we were interested in other state statutes, which we're really not, but to take a look at what they are, let's take a look at health. And then there are some subtopics here. And scrolling down, you can take a look and do your best to see what might look of interest. You can also search up here, but let's see. Take a look at medical necessity. Or there may be others that you think look more promising for a client, then you would click on that. And what a 50-state statutory survey does is kind of what it sounds like. It's going to give us a listing of the different 50 state statutes on a particular topic. So in our example, medical necessity. And what Westlaw does is it gives us a brief description of what exactly they are considering as a medical necessity, so we know what the topic of the statutes are they're looking at. So providing healthcare services, physician would give a person, and diagnosing. So again, not entirely. So it tells us the attached table organized, the content, health insurance policy effective, definition, and so forth. And then we just see the different states and links to the different statutory code sections, I should say. So the different state code sections that Westlaw has identified. We can do the exact same thing on Lexis. So again, starting to type in 50 state, and Lexis gives us 50 state surveys, statutes, and regs. And again, by topics. So if we were to think about our client, we might go to healthcare. We might also go to insurance. Let's stick with healthcare. I might look at managed healthcare. I might look at healthcare, litigation. And see what medical malpractice actions. Now, of course, this is going to include physician malpractice, so this may or may not be useful for our client. But for those of you in the PI field, this might be very useful to see what different state statutes say about the topic of medical malpractice with regard to medical malpractice actions. And again, Lexis gives us a description of what the topic is, the issue covered, which you'll definitely want to read through, and then what the states do with even a little bit of description. And a column here for damage caps. So you can learn a whole lot about medical malpractice actions, even just for one particular state, by looking here. One thing I should highlight for these 50 state surveys on both Lexis and Westlaw is that if they are not part of your organization's plan for that service, they are extraordinarily expensive. So make sure they're part of your plan before you click on it. Lexis and Westlaw should give you a warning if they are not, but just be aware again that they are quite expensive. And there is one other source of 50 state statutes, so if they're not part of your plan in Lexis or Westlaw, you can take a look at Hein Online. Now, of course, while you're still here in the law school, Hein Online is available to you. Once you graduate, you can come and visit us and access Hein Online on the workstations in the library. But for now, if we go to the library homepage, and here we see Hein Online, and we've been looking at the Law Journal Library. We looked briefly at the U.S. Code. To access the state surveys, you'd have to know, which is a little confusing or at least not intuitive, to look under subject compilation of state laws. But once you do that, you can go to the database and you can do a keyword search by all means. Sometimes I find it easier to browse the subject if my keyword search doesn't work. Since you all know how to type in keywords, I don't need to show you that. So let's browse the subjects. And again, we can scroll down and see if there's anything under healthcare or HMOs. And we see healthcare providers, we see healthcare organizations, we see health maintenance organizations, all of which are promising topics. Now, Hein Online is a little bit different in what it shows you than Lexis or Westlaw. Hein Online will not give you the actual states and their statute sections, which admittedly is quite useful. Hein Online will give you references where you can find that information. But be warned on Hein Online, at least as of now, Hein Online is going to give you some references to Bureau of National Affairs, or BNA. These may or may not still be available because BNA has been bought out by Bloomberg, and Bloomberg has transferred a lot of these materials and made it look quite different. So here you see the note available on Bloomberg BNA and Bloomberg Law. Bloomberg BNA doesn't exist anymore, and it might be a little difficult to find on Bloomberg Law. Or it may not exist. It depends on the particular topic. As I said, Bloomberg Law has combined and reorganized all of the BNA topics. But here you see other references, a state-by-state guide to managed care law. That could be useful. And eventually, if you scroll down far enough, you would find a law review. So rather than scroll, I will Control F to search. And here we see a citation to a law review article that apparently contains citations to session laws and codes. And this is Buffalo Law Review. Rather old, so again, always we need to be bibliographically aware to see how old something is, because we might not want to look at state statutes from that were cited to in 2000 or listed in 2001. So that is one useful tool for researching state statutes. Another useful tool for researching state statutes has to do with uniform laws. Now, you all are actually already familiar with this because you've talked about the Uniform Commercial Code in contracts, and you've probably talked about the Model Penal Code in criminal law. These are what are known as uniform laws. Those two examples are actually put out by two different organizations. The UCC is put out by the Uniform Law Commission. The Model Penal Code is actually put out by American Law Institute. So back here at the Uniform Law Commission website, is where you can take a look at these acts. Now, these are acts that the Commission has put together as their recommendation on what states should adopt for their particular laws on whatever areas that we see. So if I go to the listing of acts, we will see here's the recommendation for what the Uniform Law Commission thinks states should adopt as their Abandoned Property Act. If we were interested in partnership, I could search for partnership up here, and I would get this result. And what this tells me, not only does it give me the links for the Uniform Partnership Act, but it tells me which states have enacted it, and which state has currently introduced it, and the states that have not yet enacted it. And New York apparently has not yet enacted the Uniform Partnership Act. So this is a way of interpreting some of these acts when they are one of the Uniform Acts. You will also find a print set called the Uniform Laws Annotated that contains the information that we're looking at here on the website. I should mention also Lexis, Westlaw, and Bloomberg all have some amount of these uniform laws available on their services. Again, at least for Lexis and Westlaw, be aware whether or not that is part of your organization's contract with the service. Okay, so let's move on from specialized services to help us research state statutes, and let's look at statutes overall and what's available to us on the web, because as wonderful as Lexis and Westlaw and Bloomberg to a lesser extent are with the annotated codes, you may or may not have access to them. Again, you need to keep expense in mind. What a lot of organizations will do, they will include in their contract their state's statutes, but not other state statutes, so it would cost a lot of money if you're here in New York to look at Pennsylvania or Florida statutes, or vice versa. If you're in Pennsylvania or Florida, your organization will have those statutes, but not New York's. And if you wanted to find a statute from another state, say for instance you're involved in litigation with a resident of another state, and venue winds up in that state, you may need to know look at that state's statutes. So you can do that, of course, on Lexis and Westlaw, but that could be expensive. You can do that for free. So let's take a look at some of the sites. First, we'll look at federal websites, but also New York and other states. So the first place I will show you is sort of the official government publishing office site, and that's GovInfo. And you can find the United States Code here. But you will find only the United States Code as up-to-date as it is in print. So again, updating is important, as well as the associated concept of bibliographic awareness. So here's the United States Code on GovInfo, but it is only as up-to-date through essentially January of 2017. There is a better site, however, and the site I prefer to look at if I need to look at the U.S. Code for free is here at the House of Representatives site. This site may look a little bit familiar to you because we took a look at the popular name tool here as well as the Table 3 tool here. But there's also the United States Code. And what I like about the United States Code here at the House site is both the availability to search, the fact that there is an advanced search, or I can go straight to a particular section. So if we take a look at our favorite section, 291144, it pops up, and what I especially like about the U.S. Code site at the House is it tells us how up-to-date right here on top. The text contains those laws in effect on February 11, 2019. That was yesterday. At least as of the date of this recording, which makes it probably the most up-to-date resource we know of, even more so than Lexis and Westlaw. So this is why I like the House site. As I suggested, you may have a need to find a state code on the web for free, and you can always Google. That certainly works. One way I like to go, just because honestly sometimes I find it's easier and quicker, here is a legal research portal called the Legal Information Institute. It's one of my go-to sites. It's very well respected, and it provides for us a Get the Law link. So actually here is another place to get the U.S. Code. I don't love the U.S. Code here at the Legal Information Institute. Like I said, the House U.S. Code site is my favorite. but it also gives us law by jurisdiction. And LII, as I said, is the place I like to go for state laws. Notice it even has some uniform laws. But let's take a look at the state law option. And so I can find listing by jurisdiction. I can also get some law about pages. So this is a description of what the law is in a particular area. Just bear in mind that is written for non-lawyers, but still a very trusted site, so still worth taking a look at if you want a very basic explanation and they have what you're interested in. You can see an index of state statutes by topic. But let's just go to the basic listing of jurisdiction. It's fairly straightforward. So here I can find our various states. So again, if I'm interested in Florida up here, or Pennsylvania moving down, and of course here in New York, we're also going to be interested in New York. And so LII brings us to its New York Legal Materials page. Lots of other good references here, but let's focus on the legislature. So I'm going to go to statutes rather than bills. And once we get there, a couple of things you want to be aware of. We will be coming back to this site a few more times, so you want to get a sense of its organization. And the basic sense of its organization really is this home page will give you legislative materials. We'll be talking about that in a couple of weeks. But for the New York statutes, the code, you want to go to Laws of New York. So again, you need to read the screen and be aware. You don't want to be searching for bills when you want to look at the laws. This now should look maybe a little bit familiar in terms of here are named codes in the New York Code. So again, starting with abandoned property, if we scroll down, we will see our favorite code, public health. So I could navigate there to a particular code section. One thing I want to point out, we do have a search capability here, as well as it telling the New York site telling us how up to date it is. And as of February 6th, so not quite a week ago, again, pretty up to date. The laws are current through chapters 1 through 10. So again, knowing how up to date our particular code section is.